quite a few of them just couldn't really make it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was still super soft. Champ was the unicorn.
Oh.
So, yeah, y'all missed out on that.
Champ as a unicorn is probably the one thing in my life I need to see for it to be complete.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you know, we did all of the softest things. You know, we had the birthday hats, the furry scarves, the cupcake station, and fruity drinks. But we didn't take any freaking photos. Like,
yeah, how do you throw the softest birthday party and
not take
don't
photos?
take a single freaking picture?
Well, we didn't know if Wayne or Katie used disposable or not, so we couldn't really, figure it out.
I was trying to think of something to come back, but I couldn't think of anything. All right, well, anyway, so we started recording. So
Cool. All right.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Trey, what's the one rule? Don't touch the table.
Don't touch the table. What about my drink that's on the table? Is that okay?
Your drink can be on the table, but don't slam it down when you put it back. Okay.
Can do.
Anyway, welcome to the Soundcheck Podcast. Insert something that Trey may say that really doesn't matter.
I got nothing. All right, back to the Soundcheck Podcast. We have...
You said it like we just came back from commercial.
Huh? Because it was a commercial.
Back to the Soundcheck Podcast.
We have Michael Rinquet, me, Trey Scheck-Snyder,
People
and...
are going to really think that's how you say it.
Mr. Marcus Noel in the house.
Hey.
Woo! Super excited to have you today, man.
Thanks, man.
So lucky.
Oh, well, you paid me. No, I'm kidding.
No, this is definitely not a paid gig. I don't know what Trey told you.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about kind of like your journey from getting to Konkrete Studios and what you're doing with them, and we'll talk a little bit about the scene. But let's go ahead and start off. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, I started off, as everyone knowing me as Andre, and now I decided pretty recently to move on to my actual first name, which is Marcus. So that's been a very big experience for me, and probably a lot bigger of an experience for a lot of other people trying to remember that new name they have to deal with.
Yeah, I still call you Andre to my friends sometimes.
That's okay. I mean, they met me. It might have been friends that hadn't met me yet, and you said something about them, and later on they're like, "Wait, who's Marcus?" And you gotta be like, "I mean Andre," you know.
Yeah.
So that happens a little bit. Anyways, I grew up in Abbeville, unfortunately. There wasn't that much happening there. I wasn't very... I didn't get to really see a lot of the city life that I really wanted to know about. And fortunately, when I ended up finding a way to get to the city a lot more often, that's when I started to really find out about the music and around here and the community that actually it has, and I never knew that it actually had something like this. I just thought, still growing up, that it was just sign yourself up and then get on the road and you're famous really quickly.
Wait, that's not how it works.
Dude, if it was, man, y'all wouldn't have never met me. I'd been out of here already.
I think we can all say the same. Sipping
the greatest wine, but we're not there yet. We will. Any of us get there first, we're all taking each other up together. But
I don't know, we're pretty selfish.
Well, that's okay. I'll just remember that and put you on the selfish list. But
there you go.
That's okay. Anyways, and then so from there, I started to. I did a couple of things before music. I did martial arts and football and all this geeky stuff before. Tried to skateboard. I messed my leg up, so I couldn't do it anymore. And then, once I got to music, it was pretty easy to kind of. Get myself into get myself some attention from a few people at a young age, mainly just because of how excited I was to want to learn everything that they were doing. So I started to do my best to beg my parents and take me to the awesome shows that were out in Lafayette. And once I started to go to a few more, I really just started to kind of take some mental notes and then figure out, what to do on my own. And after meeting a few people at those shows and making friends with them, come to find out most of them are all musicians. And so that's how I started with getting into bands. And once I started getting into bands, I started to meet new people that were in other bands. And then sometimes my band wouldn't work out, so I'd move on to them and make friends out of that. And then once I got into about around the age of like 18, I started to really meet the right people, especially after getting to go to a couple of camps and take some lessons and whatnot.
So you started at a young age then?
Pretty young. I mean, I was such a go-getter. I did everything at once. I wanted to do football, skate, and sing and soccer all at the same time. And so I fit a little bit of music in there, and it was mainly just, it started off me just stealing my brother's guitar every once in a while, and then just trying to play quietly so he wouldn't notice.
That's what Big Brothers are for.
Oh, Big Brothers is the best. And so when that happened, I met my friends in Amaretta. Now, luckily, they were all kind of around long before, doing their own doing their own music, and taking on their own dreams. And then all of a sudden, we just kind of connected easily to a point where we were able to coordinate a really good business ethic for Amaretta. And that's where I really learned a lot of my. That's where I learned a lot of like ethical background in this. That's where I learned a lot about what to watch out for. That's where I made all the hardest mistakes that I try and teach my bands that come into my studio all the time not to do or to watch out for. And then there was also some great things that I took out of it. There was how to make sure that people get get your attention, or excuse me, how you get their attention, and then.
You mean like trying to reach a fan base?
Yeah, trying to reach out to the right people, getting the right, email set up, messaging the right people, not fake messaging, always be a genuine person and talking to those people, because those are the people that are going to be diehard and will end up wanting to buy your bundles or even just travel to go and see you because they want to meet you, not the band most of the time. They've made a connection, so they hope to reconnect over there. And if you do that when they meet you, then you made a friend beside the fan. So... and that always works out. People stick with you for a long time if you do it that way. So, with that being said, after doing Amaretta, I moved into a band called Crypt. And then after, some time with Crypt, it started to become a lot clearer that Konkrete's been, the next move. And it's been already about, I think a year was the last time we were we had started.
Yeah, we recorded. Were we the first or
the Weekend Transit was the second because I think Hardlines at the time was the first. Yes, y'all were number one, numero uno.
Got back at the old pad. Man.
Oh well, I mean, shoot, that's it. Doesn't feel so long ago. Well, actually, it does, but it also just feels like right around the corner. We're still at that old apartment that I had my studio, and that place was small, and I think I had 2 dogs at that time.
Yeah.
I had Good Boy, Champ, and Scout. I still got Champ, though. I'm happy I have Champ. So
I remember that was our first real experience recording with somebody who really knew a lot more about recording than we did. Because we had tried once before, and it almost felt like we were all learning together, including the guy recording and whatnot. So when we went, recorded with you, it was kind of just as easy as sit there, play your part, let me do the rest. I got you.
Yeah, it was, and that's how I try and I try and make it out to be like that because not make it out to be. I try and make it like that because there's a lot of etiquette that comes in with doing this type of work. You have to. 1, make sure that you're doing your job correctly, and then 2, make sure that you're making the artist happy. And sometimes it's hard. There's these 2 guitarists in a band that sometimes they've been working pretty hard on making sure that they really stick to how they treat their own feelings about this before they, want to come and record with me. And there were some parts where there were some moments where it was still like questionable, like how would you think a person would hear this, or how do you think a person would feel about this if they heard it? And sometimes there was a disagreement on that. But in the end, like, these two guitarists always ended up finding a way to build a little bit of trust when it comes to the studio, and find a way to kind of speak to each other in a better jargon.
So you're saying it was a disagreement not between the two guitarists, but between the guitarist and you as a producer?
Myself. And it wasn't really a disagreement. It was more so like we just both were seeing it differently. We weren't looking at the big picture together. We were just looking at two different pictures.
Right.
And we had to find a way to put those paintings together. And after a while, the more and more they came in, the more they were able to try their same strokes as me, but still being, of their own, and really hone in on their actual sound after just offering a little bit of advice and guidance here and there. And those two guys are sitting right in front of me. So,
Oh, man. I was about to say, man, that sounds like me. Because I was going to say, it was the same for me whenever I first started coming to Konkrete. Because for Hardlines, I wrote most of everything. And there was times where I came in and you were like, yeah, but let's try this instead. And I remember I was like, hey, guys. And everybody had your back. And I was like, I had to go back home and I was like, that's enough of that, man.
That's
like,
salty. No, it's okay. I mean, like, there really is, like, it's every band, really. Like, it's because you're coming in here, you don't know me. It's your music. You're paying me. So, like, you're expecting it to be, like, a very easy flow with how you want it to be. And unfortunately, sometimes that's just not how it'll end up, because you'll end up with something that the guy is completely, or something that either myself or another studio artist would be incapable of trying to make. I lost myself for a second, but trying to make yourself how you want it to be. And then the best thing about it is that with you guys, there was already a lot of patience, and because a lot of y'all were in and out because some of y'all work and whatnot a lot. So with Hardlines, there was a lot of patience involved because y'all were still, like, learning how to trust me. It's just all about trust, And then after a while, like, then you have to get past the trust and then start, like, sitting there and learning how each person talks. Every person that walks into my studio is kind of a completely different person.
Right. And
I have to learn that every time. So trying to find a way to speak to that separate person and then the other person it's time consuming, because there's never a first session that a person is comfortable and chilling with me. Mm-hmm. They're always on their edge. They're always, like, nervous sometimes because they're sitting here like, oh man, what if this guy thinks I suck or something? Because
that kind of never goes away.
That never, dude. Even myself going to I still track with my boss Jonathan, and, like, I still go there every time, and I'll be like, oh god,
yeah,
I know he's better than me. No.
The good thing about when we work together, you'll straight up be like, hey bro, you suck.
Yeah, and there is no lie to this at all. Most of the time, if you just tell someone to stop sucking, the next time they do it, they will kill it. They knock it. It's just sometimes a little bit of a kick.
True for me.
Well, it doesn't work for everybody, but it's okay. You have your own. You and I have had actual personal sessions. I've never had a band come in with just one person. Right. And the times that we had together, Mike, were pretty intimate because we were finally able to not worry about what someone else thought or not worry about how we spoke to each other. We were just able to, brother up for a moment and look at this as, as something very beautiful for people to see. And I think we did pretty well in those times.
It was definitely a lot easier knowing that, it was just me and you, so it was easy to, like, speak freely and say,
Mm-hmm.
And pick apart that song because we weren't worried about, who's next, what do we have next, worried about everybody just chilling and hanging out.
Yeah.
Anybody feeling negatively towards it. So we had more time to be like, okay, that sounds cool, but I think there's something that could be better.
Mm-hmm.
So let's work it out. And we came to conclusions of, like, stuff that personally I probably never would have done. And I like to think maybe you feel the same way. Maybe you never would have thought of something I did, maybe.
Your chords are insane, so yes.
Yeah.
That's like something I'm very headstrong about.
Signature, man.
Make something that sounds... that every little note has to be like voicing something.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, you can play power chords, and there's definitely times where power chords are like, you know, that fits. That's the butter. But sometimes it's like, make it sound hard. Make it sound like it's something hard to play.
Yeah, and take advantage of your guitar, you know, take advantage of every string and put something to it. And that's what I like about your type of style is you're not just a person that's like, okay, maybe we can just put this chord right here, let's do it. We're sitting here like, okay, maybe we could put our fingers right here, and then let's try a different type of strumming pattern, you know? So that's always been very interesting with you compared to a few other artists that I've had. And to kind of like step onto another stone is well, before I even move on to that, I would even say the way that we had those sessions personally really built a lot of trust between the band itself, not even just me. It built a lot of trust with y'all because now we know that we've had sessions separately. You know, Trey hasn't been at a few of them, Casey wasn't, but after the first couple rounds that y'all weren't there, y'all were finally able to trust Michael with all of the rhythms and stuff, and when we sent it to y'all were ecstatic, you know? Right. Same thing goes with Will. Y'all wrote some of the lyrics, but when I got my hands on them, it was just Will and I just sitting there trying to build trust for him to send it over and see how you'll like it.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. That was a little hard at first because, I'm not going to lie, it was up until, honestly, probably The Descent because I was worried. Well, name drop, The Descent. But I was a little worried about that one because I knew that song was a little bit, not necessarily like totally different, but it was a different gear.
It had a different carry for it. It was carrying something different than the rest.
It's a different groove. It's a very vibey song.
Yeah.
And I was really worried about the vocals on that song. But I honestly, when I got it back, and I was like, not apprehensive, that's a strong word to use, but I was like, but then I thought to myself, I was like, they would not write and produce a bad piece of material. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna sit it down, I'm gonna come back to it and listen to it in a different light. Mm-hmm. And I did that. Now honestly, it's actually my favorite song.
I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I know all the other songs, they have so much beauty to it. Like, I've never produced such a beautiful record. That song, not gonna name drop, is going to be hopefully everyone else's goosebump because to be honest, on the way here I was jamming it, and there was one part where, you know, Will came in with this very sexy voice, like it was out in the background, it had this like uppity scale, and came back down and landed it, and it gave me goosebumps instantly, and then the song just blasted in, and that song isn't very structured in a way that I would propose to other people. It wasn't formulated a way that I was going to propose. And so luckily when you came in and we started to work off of that, and I ended up with the bass, I put some more ambience and background stuff, you know, it was still interesting and questionable. But the moment we were able to have Will on there and kind of sit back and look at the tone, like the scale of it, because that's a high singing song. Yeah. We tried to go higher. I mean, he couldn't. Like it was really hard working for him. And so when we ended up doing that, I knew that, before we ended up doing that, I knew that the vocals needed to be stronger than the song already was, because the song was already, you know, at its strongest without the vocals, and it was very, like you said, drivey, and made me think of like, you know, honestly, it sounds stupid. It just made me think of like ocean waves and just like pure peace, you know. But the best thing about having peace in the world, or like having peace among things, is that there is still power among it. There's always power over peace. with peace. And I found that Will's very powerful vocals and the high notes and the way he pushed it all out really gave that song a strong signature to that record. So that song will pop out so much.
Yeah, and that's a point I want to make too, is like, you're such a freaking wizard in the studio, man. Like, because like that's the thing too, is that's something we had to learn, is like you said, being able to trust you and basically give you what we created and allow you to take it to that next level.
Yeah.
And that's what some of the bands, let me say this. Like, going into the studio, some people who have never done it before don't understand that just as much as you are there to record our song, you are a producer as well. You help carry the song to a new place. You help transcend it to be whatever it is. And that's the beautiful thing about working in a studio, is it's the band might write the song, but it's the producer that puts his input in that makes it grow into this beautiful picture.
Yeah, you look at it as like as a body. You look at it as a body. It's every band has come to me with, I call it a skeleton. They come with all of the strength and like the everything behind or everything in front that they want, and then I'm pretty much just like the organs and the flesh that come up. And then once it all goes to, my partner in this is Jonathan. Jonathan does the mixing and mastering. It goes to him. He's the stitches, and he puts all the skin and everything right on top.
Right.
And so when some bands come to me with, half of their skeleton and whatnot, you're gonna a way to even help a band understand more is because I could say, yeah, I'm a producer, but they still don't know what that is. They don't know if a producer is just helping you produce, like not producing your band. So producing a band, being a producer, is the next member in your band. Right. You have to allow their opinion solely because they care as much as you do. I care solely on making sure that song is catchy and played again, not skipped over on the internet. I want people hearing that song, and like I want people hearing the chorus at a perfect time before they lose it or before they lose the interest. And I want to make sure that it's bought, and then instead of it being just, oh, it's a good song, it's like I need more. I need to meet this guy Trey. I want to ask questions about their leads with Michael. I wonder if he's the guy that did it. Man, the vocalist, he is insane. I gotta meet this guy. Hey, when is y'all's next show? You never know how easy that is, actually, because I've had multiple people that I would send a video or even just say hello to, and then make a couple of moments and then just mention my band on a whim, but not like, hey, I'm in a band, check me out. It's like, I remember my band did that one time. You're in a band? No way. Let me check you out. Dude, totally. And then you send them the strongest visual or anything that you have that can make them really sit there and like pay attention. And then after you send them that stuff, you try and make friends. And then like I was saying earlier, if that song is really good and you're a friendly person, you do have a fan and friend for life, Right. So, and that's part of the experience that not a lot of people think I'm trying to do. They think I'm just there to make your song sound good. Mm-hmm. I'm there to make people like weep when they hear your stuff.
No, I could definitely attest to that, because your work has never stopped at the music with us. I mean, we talk almost every other day
about everything else too.
About planning and what's the next step, what's the next move. This is what we plan on doing.
Good investments and stuff.
Everything that involves the music as a whole, as a business, as a marketing monster that it is. We talk about everything. So I commend you for that, for sure. You definitely care more about the band than just, like you said, let's make a good song. It doesn't stop there.
It starts there. It all starts there. I mean, there was always, the reason why I've always had trouble with a few, I'll even put myself an example with band members that I was with, is that some of us wouldn't think in the right steps. They want to go from 1 to 3 instead of sitting at 1 and then go 1.5 to 2, because there's so much still behind all the behind the scenes are your 0.1 to 0.9s in between those numbers, and some people can't skip that, and there's some people that respect trying to make sure marketing is done before the song is done.
Right. Yeah.
What are you going to market if you don't know how the song sounds? What are you going to visualize if the song is half-assed? You're going to think, okay, well, we don't need that much stuff to do, we don't have that much stuff to do for this because it's just done how it is. But if you hear a person say, this song is absolutely perfect, and then they put their own mind to it, most of the time they're going to want even more perfect for, say, a music video or a visual. And that even right there, again, brings me back to how a person is going to appreciate you reaching out to them, or even just appreciate you making it. You know?
Right, yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
but other than that, yeah, Concrete's a fun job.
Yeah.
I like it. It's
Well,
a lot of cool people that come into my door.
I want to add one more thing about you talking about when we worked together. A great example, two great examples. One song called "Quiet." I mean, we have shirts with it on it. It's fine. We can name drop, right? It's cool.
So you do it all the time.
I do it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, you do that one thing too much. Don't do that. I was like, okay, yeah, I understand. I see that. And
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and you were like, do this, and me and Will were there, and it was like, oh, dude, that's so sick. And you're like, okay, what do we do next? And I did something, and you're like, do that. And then the next thing, like we did that whole song. We did that. It was like, hey, you said, hey, do this. And then, okay, well, what's the next part? I would write something real quick, and you were like, yeah, do that. We literally kept going part for part.
Yeah.
Writing that song together.
Yeah, that's sometimes a very fun way to do it. And it's sometimes, excuse me, sometimes it's not smart to do that every time. But once I think, like the connection we've made after a while, that ends up working out a lot better. Say, for example, if y'all would have came in and we wrote Quiet and it was the first song, we would have been all over the place. We would have not known what to agree on. We would have not known how. Right. We would have been scared to say an honest opinion. We would have been trying to roing around saying that what we want without offending someone.
Well, truthfully, you didn't really step in all that much until we started the EP.
Yeah.
Because I don't think in Letting Go, you didn't do a single
Letting Go
thing.
was quite y'all.
Yeah.
It was pretty much y'all. Losing Ground, I think I came in a little more on a couple of things. Like, we added like that very ambient ending and then brought it back into something slamming. And I think I remember we were writing the lyrics there and stuff, and that was a fun song. That was a very well collected song.
I love that song. And even then, though, even at that time, though, we moved closer to, understanding ourselves and whatnot.
Yeah, and each other for sure,
Yeah, but I still think this EP is where it's gonna like really all make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are gonna appreciate the work y'all did for it.
Yeah,
for sure. Very
Shout
much.
out the Weekend Transit.
Yeah,
we don't always do
the Weekend
this.
Transit is freaking awesome. I cannot wait for everyone to hear y'all for sure.
Enough about us, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
I can give y'all an example of another band that has not dismissed any type of impression from me. They're a band. They're so young and so driven. Their band is called Among You, and they're all 17 to 23 years old. I think there's only one 23-year-old or something. I think there's two of them that are in their 20s. The rest are teens, and these guys came in with one, already finished songs, and then two, the most open camera ever to see the picture. They were like, Marcus, we have all these ideas, but to be honest, we've seen your work. What can you do to enhance us? And I was like, okay, well, what can I do? Or I was thinking to myself, what can I do? And it all starts to really, show how they listened and how they took in all the advice. Remember, they're young, so they're still taking in anything that they don't know yet, and there's a lot. To a point where it's been a year. They, first of all, trusted me with their first record, that they were pretty adamant about keeping it a very strong originality too, but still let me add layers like I like to do, or put ambience, or sometimes break a couple of notes apart. But then talk about 6 months later, around like this past December, these guys were just like, yo, our music isn't even released yet, but we do not want to miss out on the work you're doing. I mean, we don't want to miss out on the time that we can have with you. So let's start record 2. So these dudes already finished record 2.
Wow.
Without and their first record is not released yet.
Mm-hmm.
And they're already starting to pay for like doing the actual tracking and whatnot. And now they already sent me their roughs for record 3. That's a very, very strong integrity right there. You know,
I agree, but my only thing I could see with having an issue with that is as you get older and as times change, your view on things change, your visions change,
Yes.
your taste change.
Yes.
So I definitely think that I know I'm going back to us, but in my opinion, we should start writing now. You know, we should start writing now.
Absolutely.
Now that we have our first one ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I can see where there could be an issue with having too much far ahead, because in a year and a half, 2 years, when you decide to release that next thing, depending on, I don't know if they're doing EP full length or whatever, but say it's an EP and they're going to release another EP a year later. Well, a year later, that may not hit them the same as it did a year ago when they wrote it.
That is, I can agree with that completely, because as a prime example, what they are about to release that they haven't released yet and that they have recorded, they already lost interest in, you know? And it's not, excuse me, that's actually a very wrong word. They didn't lose interest. They've already moved on to a new sound. Their stuff is already way stronger. Their stuff is already heavier and more dynamic and actually very mature for their age. Like, their drummer is named Chris, and he's actually a good friend of mine too. And he, this dude has just ideas out the ass all the time, just moving with riffs, sending me guitar riffs all day. And then I'm sitting here like, dude, okay, I appreciate that one, but I think if you broke it up, I think if you didn't do this part, I think if you tried to do something in an evolving manner instead of changing it, you know, I think it would end up sticking well. Great. Comes up with something better. Great. Now let's bring it into the studio. So now, like how you were saying, you felt like there could be a discomfort after a while of, you know, if you're over it or if you don't have that kind of interest. The best part is some bands, of course, try their best not to step completely away from their sound, but they always want to try and evolve it. The good reason why they're ahead of it is because now they're allowing time for it to marinate, you know?
Right.
That means that we are already ahead. Those songs we recorded that are pre-pro were done in December, and they already are booking with me and have so many things they want to change, move around, add on to, which is good, because instead of it being, okay, we wrote the song, send it off to Jonathan, now it's, okay, we wrote the song, let's sit on it. Let's let it marinate. Okay, well, honestly, now that I've been really thinking about it, there's one part that every time I hear it for the past 6 months, it comes in, it just doesn't feel right. Okay, Marcus, what are we going to do? You know, and then from there is what we're going to do to change it, evolve it, make it better. And so there are, yes, areas that I would say are, sketchy to want to be, you know, to want to be worried about, like, if down the road it's just not something you want to do, change it, you know?
Yeah. I could see where obviously being ahead of the game is a good idea. That way, you know, material is constantly being, you know, prepared. You have something and you never have to worry about, well, it's been 3 or 4 months. We haven't done a thing since our last thing. So I could see that definitely being smart to stay away from it. But at the same time, I guess as long as
it's productivity. It's all it is, really. I mean, as long as you're productive, then you're good. I mean, for example, just like you were saying earlier, if you were in a position to start writing, now would be the time, because, you know, you're doing all of the other stuff that I was saying were about. There's all these other things that I was saying, you know, earlier. There's always those 0.1 to 9s that go in between the numbers.
Yeah.
That is all of everything else besides the music. So what are you going to do to stay at those numbers and keep on writing those songs at those exact numbers? And what are you going to do in between? Right now, what y'all are doing in between is preparing to release. So what's the next number that you have to do after release? is back to step one. What's the writing
Yeah.
process? You know, so
Well, we do have some ideas to keep carrying the first EP while we're working on our next.
no, that's
our
smart.
releases.
Yes.
So I think what I'm confident in is the fact that we keep having, let's keep not milking. That sounds like such a taboo word, but let's keep writing this EP.
Yeah.
Writing it until we're ready for the next thing.
Cool.
Right.
So
if
yeah.
go ahead. You said you'd like to debut or play a little clip of this Among You song.
Yeah, this song is actually called Abstract Society from Among You. Very, very smart little dudes, and I can see a lot of expansion from them coming in the next few years. I think they're going to do great. So this song is called Abstract Society.
All right.
So that was Among You with Abstract Society. Make sure you follow those guys on all social media platforms. And we're going to go ahead and switch gears a little bit and move on to a little bit of scene talk. And I believe Trey had a bit of a talking point to go through.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up with you on a question from earlier, talking about, growing up in Abbeville. I grew up in Kaplan. And I remember growing up when I was 16, picked up my Starcaster and started learning music.
Cool.
Yeah, dude.
Starcaster, boy.
That's what I learned on. That's my baby. But anyway, I remember playing, and I remember being extremely intimidated by the scene. And being so young and seeing all these established and very professional musicians out there. And I just felt like I was just some punk that just knew how to play power chord and start writing music. And I remember... Still are, yeah. I remember my very first local show that I went to with my wife. It was just me and my wife. We went to Mosh the Gras at the District in Lafayette, and I remember watching them, and I was like, man, these are so professional and so good. And that's what kind of lit my fire, and meeting people there and talking to them. And I just remember,
Who was on that, by the way?
it was I always forget their name.
Was my band on there?
Not that one.
I don't think
It was I think it was Simple Plan, The Arbitrary.
Simple Plan?
Not Simple Plan.
Simple Plan, huh?
5-year Plan.
5-year plan. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I was about to say, yeah. Okay.
Arbitrary. And actually it was They Will Fall at the time.
Okay, I know. Yes, I know the show you're talking about. We did not play that. You're right.
Right.
Yes.
Well, anyway, I remember seeing all of them. And I think that was Mosh the Gras. I'm almost positive it was, because the first band was Quintessential Oddities.
That's the right show.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
the one.
That's a cool name.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, I remember seeing that and meeting people and talking to them and being like, maybe this is possible for me to do. And that's whenever Burning the Arbor kind of started. But like,
No.
anyway, no, what?
What? Something came before Burning of the Arbor.
Okay, Trey. Okay. Tell us.
What came before Burning the Arbor?
What? How does John say it? What? Something
Talking about Christian bits.
No. What is that? I didn't even
You just opened up a whole new.
Hey, Chase will know. Chase will know what I'm talking about. But we don't talk about that.
Oh, that's funny. No,
That's
what
funny.
wasn't
You're talking about To Kill a Coyote.
To Kill a Coyote.
No.
Oh, no way.
That wasn't even a band. Me and Zach had just made I think it was a band camp, and we just put a picture up, and we were like, we're going to do this.
Kill a Coyote. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cute. Oh,
It's
to
adorable.
Kill a Coyote.
Super soft.
But anyway, so growing up from that area and like becoming one of the most established musicians in the scene, like what got you here? What brought you to this?
Well, honestly, I think you might have even said it earlier, the nerve that I had to go through and like all the fear of like what people would think of me, that was the first round. I think that's everybody, to be honest, and anything that happens is when you first start off, what is everyone else going to think, instead of worrying about what you just enjoy and what you think. And for me, it was kind of the same thing. I went to a Aileron show. You ever heard of Aileron? Remember them?
Mm-mm.
Oh man, dude, I can still hear their music in my head. I have a tattoo actually. The world can't see it that's listening, but it says "This the world against one man," and that's his handwriting, the guy. So I was like, "Can you write it down on a piece of paper?" And such genuine people, but I was so intimidated by them.
Right.
But I was still even though I was intimidated by them, I didn't want to leave them alone. Almost, I was obsessed with seeing such grown men rock some music, and it'd be right around the corner from me. So I was able to go and see them all the time, and I supported them to a point where they even sometimes let me fill in for guitar. And I was 16, 17 years old. I was that punk that only played power chords,
Yeah.
And they gave me that chance, and that kind of shaked a little bit of the first time jitters off a little bit. I mean, I still get the stage fright on shows and whatnot, but from then, it was really just all about, first of all, trying to make friends, and then even sometimes there wasn't a lot of people. I wasn't good at making friends growing up, so it wasn't a lot of people that I can make friends with and then start asking professional questions, because they're all older. They don't want to hang out with some little misfit 16-year-old. So I had to actually find chances anytime I could to ask questions. I would sometimes even go to Lafayette Music. There's a guy named Charlie Gath, or Goth, Gathe. He was in a band called Liquid Sand, and I love their stuff. It was good rock and roll, good Deftone sound, and he taught there. And sometimes my mom was going. My mom was a transcriptionist, I think is what it's called, and all of that is pretty much just typing audio down, like whatever words they say, she has to type it down for like reports and whatnot for doctors. And she would have to go to Lafayette to drop off those transcripts. And while she's doing that, it would take a while. Lafayette Music was right next door. So I would go in there, play guitar for like 2 hours, and wait for Charlie to come inside and be like, "Charlie, what's up? I have a question. What can I do to do this? What can I do to do that?" And he gave me like sometimes like cheesy answers, sometimes philosophical that I didn't understand, because I was like, I just want to rock and roll. To
Same.
to many things, as like what's the best way to start an actual establishment in a band. And he would give me the whole rundown of behind the business, and then sometimes it was only 5 minutes, and then sometimes it was 20 minutes. I had a chance to talk to him before he had to go to a lesson. Good example right there. And then just after a while, it started to become such things as like I knew that the only way to help my name is to not just learn from the names around here and then just stick with that. I want to be a person that can go anywhere and learn about how to make a name. So I branched out onto going to like camps, and I didn't do lessons, but I remember one time I spent an entire summer, and it was the summer before I went to it, and then that winter following up, I had to do crawfishing and mowing, and I had to get like $2,000 to be able to go to this camp in Nashville called Camp Electric. And dude, it was so cool because I was getting to ask questions to every band that was playing that week, which was for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I had a professional band playing for us. How cool is that?
That's sick.
Get some breakfast, go listen to some Red.
Yeah.
Get some breakfast, get some lunch, go listen to Skillet real quick.
Man.
And it was a Christian place, so dinner time with Stephen Curtis Chapman and Toby Mac, and like,
boy.
it was so cool because like you get to really interact with them. And so all about that camp, that is what taught me integrity and taught me about what it's like to be on the road. So I was able to sit in the same room with Pillar. Noah Henson is his name, I think.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
Noah
about.
is my boy, man.
Yeah.
I love that guy. I remember, I think I still have his strap he signed. I sat there, I think, for 3 hours after we had that lesson. And I think he didn't like me after a while, because I was just like, so what about this? Like, what do I do for this? But I can tell that, like, he wanted me to know. You know, he really wanted a person that was asking this many questions. He wanted to make sure that they were all answered. And then, come to find out, I asked so many questions too, it came to a point where I was like, can I play with y'all?
Uh-huh.
And he was like, well, I don't see why not. Do you know one of our songs? And I was like, yeah, I know Frontlines. And he was like, you know Frontlines? Play it for me right now. I played the whole song. That night they had the show. And they were like, and the thing is, like, they had a few other people playing bass or someone would come and sing.
Okay,
but then it was my turn. I got to play with Pillar. And I also got to play with other people like Toby Mac. I got to play their song Fire. It was really cool.
Wow.
And it was so fun. So that right there, there was no jitters. There was no first-time jitters. I got that out of the way when I was with Aileron. Mm-hmm. And I went to Nashville and I got to check all these real people out. And that's what really taught me the respect that I wanted, you know, and the desire and the dream. And then there were quite a few things I still had to learn, such as quote-unquote marketing and business and stuff. But that over there was just, how do you want people to see you? And, you know, I got Noah to see me, you know, but also Noah is he was a teacher, not just a band guy. I'm pretty sure after a while he'd been like, fuck off. Excuse me, go away. And with that being said, like, it felt really good to come back, start making new friends. You know, I started a band called As It Rains. It was so lame.
So edgy.
I know, right? And it was we came up with that name because our first show we got rained out on.
Okay.
And we were just like, well, we didn't have a band name, and now we don't have a show. And then we sat there and we were like, well, as it rains, we don't get to play anymore. And he was just, and someone was like, I think As It Rains is the band name. Hell yeah. And then we started writing like Mayday Parade, Red Jumpsuit.
Ooh.
And that was cool. You know, that was fun because at the same time, I was actually able to get people to notice me just by being me, but also portraying what I learned, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And, I'm sorry.
I think, well, I was going to say, it makes sense. Like, you're saying how the guy that did lessons and whatnot, he said his name was...
Noah Henson.
He's the guy that you would go to the guitar store to wait to talk to him?
No. Excuse me. That's Charlie Goth. Noah Henson was the Pillar guy I was talking about. Charlie Goth was the guy that...
I could see where, okay, if people came up to me, you know, not saying they would, but if they came up to me asking me a bunch of questions on stuff, and I'd be like, why are you asking me? I don't know. I can't give you all the answers. No, when you go to people who are, you know, Pillar, Skillet, Red, and all that, they would be like, well, yeah, like, you know, we understand how it goes. We have a better grip on it than, you know, just somebody who's trying to make it. So I could totally understand where people don't like to be asked too many questions because they don't really know.
Yeah,
and they
they're still figuring out themselves, you know?
Yeah, I don't want to go give somebody a bunch of advice and sound like I'm a know-it-all and whatnot when I'm like, haven't really made it at all, you know?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
what gives me the right to go give somebody a bunch of advice, you know?
Yeah, and that's where I think, you know, there was, I was an annoying kid because I asked so many questions because I just wanted to know, man. And sometimes I would ask again, you know, like the same question just to make sure I'm doing it right. And I just remember, you know, especially when I came back and I started my bands, and I remember As It Rains was like the first like guidance band. I had to guide them in a few things. And then after a while it was, you know, the next band was, actually I forgot, I joined Missing Nevaeh for a while, if you ever remember them. That was, okay, Rogue's vocalist Jansen Nunez was Missing Nevaeh. And I don't know if y'all remember, which, rest in peace, my boy, Tristan Bork, he passed away a few years back, and he was also part of that band that I was in. So I was in there for a while, and then they kicked me out for me just going through a little bit of a different lifestyle that I shouldn't have. And then after a while, what was amazing, the reason why I see Amaretta as the most striving experience I ever had is because of how it started. I had to do exactly the same thing that I still have to do today for bands to trust me in Konkrete. I'm not going to talk about what I had to convince people about, but I remember I had to really make sure that before I joined Amaretta, that I had to be trusted very, very well. And I had to be smart
right.
About a lot of things. And that's when, you know, I was able to finally get them to trust me, and then finally start using the real business and the real integrity and the real passion that I had behind it. And luckily, when Amaretta came around, you know, I was able to have 5 other members that were on the same page for the first time. And actually, you know, very, very well skilled in other things besides the music. You know, our vocalist Alex does amazing music videos. Caleb was a very good proposal worker. He was good at talking to the right people. Kaden was really good with marketing. Gentry knew the merch, and Steven knew the money. And guess where that puts me? The yummy music writer that just sits right in between and makes the stuff sound cute, you know?
The good stuff.
Yeah.
But the
So
frustrating stuff.
it's frustrating, but I'd rather be frustrated doing that than music videos and merch and money and marketing. That just seems so much funner to be stressed out about. Because the best thing about being stressed out about creativity is you just leave it alone and get away from the stress. Suggest you let that one marinate, you know, for a little bit, and then you know, and then after a while you come back and you'll be stress free. And sometimes, you know, that stress will turn into something blooming, you know, especially if you come back and you feel like something could be enhanced, and then it becomes the best thing you've done. So
come back and figure it out.
Figure it out. That's what I always say, you know.
Yeah, even like when it comes to writing and whatnot, though, just a quick little thing. Even John Mayer himself said, some days you'll go into the studio and you'll kill it, and you'll just be like, yeah, I'm the best, I got this. Some days you'll go in there and be like, I am useless, worthless, I am the worst musician ever.
Try being the producer. That's me every day almost on both sides.
That's not a burden I want at all.
Yeah.
Now, I hate to do this, bro. We could talk for hours. We really could. But we're kind of almost running a little bit over our time. So I do want to do a quick little wrap-up. I want a few quick points on just some ideas you think the Louisiana scene can use to beef up our scene and to put us on the map.
Okay, so I know you said we can talk all day, which we can talk about this all day too.
Yeah, I know.
So to really give an observation before I give suggestion, what I have observed, let's say I'm gonna start with a timeline where y'all have been involved too, so y'all can kind of see it. Mm-hmm. Honestly, when it was probably around 2016 or 2015, Louisiana wasn't at an all-time low, but it was so quiet. It was just not too active. Shows were happening, but it was always sketchy, and people had trouble getting people there. In a couple years, say 2017, there's so many bands that were overflowing shows almost every weekend. There's 3 shows in 3 different venues happening, you know? I think that is amazing. One, because that means that artists are now feeling fearless to actually express themselves. There's a lot of artists that are now expressing themselves purely now than when they were first coming to me saying that they don't think they're going to be able to do it that well or get to that point. And now they're surpassed, you know, a lot of people. And then, you know, there's still also people that, you know, are still in the learning of it, but they're still doing it. And that's what I'm loving about this, is that people are still not worried about taking chances, even if others think it's a bad chance or a bad opportunity or just a bad move. And honestly, a lot of it has been a leap of faith for a lot of bands, but it's been very successful around here. The only thing that I think would be something that would be smart to pay attention to is ratio. And ratio, I mean by the people or the type of people that are attending your shows. So let's break it down a little bit real quick. We have 5 bands on the bill. Mm-hmm. Each band has, let's say, average 5 people. 5, that's 25 people there, okay? So that's 25 people that are, one, there to perform, but also there to respect the other performers. So they're considered also attendees, you know? Then you have the band's friends, each band's friends that are coming in. Quote-unquote friends, because it's a lot of people that are your friends that you're hitting up. So you have those people there. And then you have the fans that are showing up, okay? So in all of those ratios, fans are the least that are still in attendance. It's friends or family members that were able to convince them to come over if they're still interested, or they're your friends because they support you. And then again, the ratio is always at the standard ratio for band members that are there because they are bands, they're playing there. So you always have that exact ratio. Friends, are also most of the time, like I said, family members and whatnot. And then to even bring fans about, you can separate fans into a couple of things. You can have artist fans, and then you can have fans.
Mm-hmm.
Artist fans are still the people that are artists and appreciate you being an artist, and so they will go and see you. And so most of the time, your fan ratio is with those people. And sometimes, guess what that is? That's just another band member there that's just not playing there that night. So a band member like that, they're going to know about your music for the rest of it. But what are we going to do to make sure that the fans, the people that are just coming in to have a drink and jam the music, what are we going to do to make sure that that ratio is at the highest? Because that is what's most important. We can still make monies from our friends and our families and our artist fan base that are still around there that respect you. But what's going to happen when you step out of your boundaries? And what's going to happen when you step into Texas? Mm-hmm. Your friends and artist friends cannot make it there. So you have to rely on that ratio of fans.
Right.
So suggestion on that, I can't tell you, because that can all go back to so many things. How you get that person convinced to like you. Do they even like your music? If a person really likes your music, they will show up. They will drop. If a person even lives in Houston and he sees that there's a show in Lake Charles, they will show up. But what are you going to do to do that? One, write good music, make a good visual, and then make sure it's in their face. So that is what is lacking in a lot of bands, is that they're very proud. They'll post their music and then they'll think that it will just ride. And if all of the organic work that they're doing is still not the most organic work they can do. They can say, friends, come to my show. Great, your friends will come to your show. Of course they will. But who are those people that don't see you all the time? Who are those people that don't even know you that will find interest in what your work is? That is a question everybody still needs to try and answer differently, because that is what makes a band different. If we all do the same thing, it will be boring to the fans. They will be like, okay, well, this band, new band, cool, sounds good. Bet you don't know what they're about to do in their marketing scheme. You don't want that.
Yeah,
no.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna throw my 2 cents in. I think something bands have been missing is, considering where we're from, Louisiana, South Louisiana. I've said this on the podcast before. I think me and Alec probably us and Alec probably talked about this. But I think if you look at what Louisiana likes and how do you cater to Louisiana and the people of Louisiana, they like to party, they like to drink. That's their thing. Yep. So you have to look at the venues that are available. How do you make those venues look equally as enticing or more so enticing than going, say, like up the street to OB's, where there's going to be raging party music going on, where everybody's just drinking and doing this or that or the other. Like, obviously, we want fans. Like, you're right. You're absolutely 100% right about, you can almost count on friends being there. But the way I look at it is, I never want my friends to not show up. I love and appreciate every one of them, but I want to see faces I've never seen before.
Always.
I want to see a person that I don't know your name.
Yes.
And I don't want you to necessarily not know my name, because I think nowadays building fans or a community is important, and people like to know who you are, and they like to be able to support you as a person along with your music. So I think that's something too, letting people into the band and letting them know what it's like to be a part of that band, because people want to feed off of the energy you give off. So yeah, our songs may be quote unquote sad, but they don't necessarily give that vibe off.
Yeah.
And I think we can, market it as, or at least introduce it as more fun than just sad. Even though there's a very,
it's a very magnetically fragrant type of sound y'all have. It's
I'm sorry, I don't want to go back on the Weekend Transits.
Yeah.
It's easy to me to relate to it, because we're also, a band trying to have a hand in building up the scene.
Right. Well, that's what I was actually mentioning, Michael, is that term I said, magnetically fragrant. What I'm saying is that y'all have that quote unquote smell that people will want to look around and be like, and get closer to you. Is that you? Oh, you smell good. You sound good. Whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's and yes, that's very hard, man. Especially these days, like it's just there are people doing that all the time in their own ways, and some people are convinced differently. And your question about, or even your thought of like, how are you able to convince someone to enjoy themselves with people like us compared to going to OB's for a rave or going to another place? Honestly, that's just unfortunately their choice and their opinion on what they like more. If you really can't change what people have an interest in if it's something different, but
Yeah, I guess
if
my
they
whole,
are
my whole point in that was like, if you look at how the word gets around about those type of places and what, because those type of places have been around for a long time, but how does anything start? It has to be nothing before it becomes something.
Well, of course,
and
yes.
people have to slowly start realizing that there's more than just what you've been doing,
Right.
and this is something that's enjoyable. This is a good time. This is a community you may want to be a part of.
Yeah.
So how do you convince a lot? You're right. Some people just like what they like. They're full with what they have. They don't want nothing more. But there's always a crowd of people just looking for something, but they don't know what it is. So how do you make people realize that what they're doing may not be for me, but it looks like these people are having fun? You know what I mean? So you have to kind of, I think maybe we should look to those places that are appealing to a mass of people and see how they're doing it and use that in art, and all of the Louisiana bands should look to those places and see, okay, they're doing these types of things at that place. How do we make that happen here where we're playing?
Right. So you got to look at it as like a type of hospitality that you're trying to offer to someone. You want to make sure that a person is comfortable and having the time of their life. If they're not gonna have a time of their life, they're gonna not trust any type of show like that anymore. So it is up to you, first of all, to be dynamically impressive to people. And so, of course, even though it's not like a homey vibe or like a welcome home thing, raves and clubs provide stimulations that people approve of or appreciate. So you have to find a way to make that stimulant, provided by y'all. So, for example, I think what a smart idea was for y'all was that since we had a show together at Zephyrs. Very, very good amount of people coming in, but let's think about the ratio again. There's a lot of respected artists there before there were a lot of fans. Right. But the fans, I'm sure, were appreciating that there were little things that were welcoming, such as Weekend Transit was offering types of shots. That correlates to a welcoming type of hospitality instead of your own little table and your own little offer. You surrounded the whole place with your type of hospitality. Right. So things like that are able to catch each other's eyes besides what you're doing or besides the music you're playing, that's what's going to give them, a good response to you. For example, raves. Music is not the only thing that they're going to do when they get into the club. They're going to do drugs in the bathroom and go do some alcohol and, they're having a good time. So you have to try and that's what they're doing. EDM, alcohol, and everything else in the bathroom, right? So it's like...
Disclaimer, we're not approving hard drugs.
No, we do not approve it at all. I think it's very dangerous, but that's what they do, and that's what they welcome. So
that's like you're saying, that's just what drives them there.
Whether
it's approved of or not. That's what gets them there. It's just the correlation.
And it's not just only one thing. Like I said, it's not just the music they want to come and see. They want to have a good time, meet new people, drink some beers, and, apparently, and for y'all, they want to try your shot, Yeah. So... that is, there are so many ways that you can expand on making sure that people show up. And it's mainly just about marketing, but in the end, the only way you can get real fans coming through is if you actually convince them to be one. And that comes from personally each of you, not the band. If the band is messaging a person, they will not like it. They're going to think that they're being ganged up on. If Michael hits up somebody that he doesn't know that just seemed to have liked or shared something that he likes, use that. Dude, I love what you shared. I like what do you really think about it? Oh, this and that. Wow, I really enjoy your opinion on this. Like, I love the opinion you gave to this type of sound. Hey, to be honest, what do you think about this? Show him your band. Either says yes or no. If he's an honest person and doesn't seem to like it, dude, truly approve your honesty. And I tell you what, the next time I'm in the studio, I'm going to think about what I talked about with you and maybe see if that's something that I can convince you to look back and give a second chance for. Anything. And then there's some people that will say they like it, and then you're like, well, great, I'm so happy you like it. And then just talk about them. Take off for a little bit about what you're talking about, and then come back again. Well, yeah, sorry, I gotta, in just a moment I have to go and do some writing and whatnot, but like I totally hope we can talk again. Or tell you what, we have a show, maybe I can even meet you in person. That is what's gonna build a ratio. It's hard because you gotta just sit there, flirt with a couple girls, talk to a couple of guys,
That's dangerous territory.
show some feed pics to a couple of dudes, like whatever. It might create a fan, Right. And I mean, look, the whole flirting thing, it's dangerous because you gotta be careful, but sometimes it works, I mean.
We're gonna leave that to two of the other members.
To the bachelors.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, Marcus, we have immensely enjoyed our time together, and again, like I said, we could talk for hours, but this is I'm pretty sure we hit over an hour.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's about right.
You talk too much. I'm just
I
talk
way too much.
Kidding, I love you. But again,
hopefully it all makes sense, because I know
any last plugs? Konkrete Studios, got your boy Marcus, your boy Jonathan doing incredible work.
Yeah, if there's anyone listening that is an artist that is looking to expand their sound, please find me and care to join us, because we have a good time. We have a good time.
Absolutely. So once again, thank y'all so much for listening to the Soundcheck Podcast. We'll see y'all next time.
Thank you, guys.